On today's episode, Tough Mudder has announced they will not pay prize money for any of their competitive races in 2019. This is the OCR Report. Welcome back to the OCR Report. Thank you for joining us. My name is Will Hicks, and I am thrilled you have found our podcast. We are going to recap this past weekend's Spartan SoCal race in our next episode, but there was some breaking news from Tough Mudder that we're going to discuss in a minute. Before we start, you can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at the OCR Report, and you can be a part of the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. I've seen people already leaving reviews. Thank you very much. I am grateful for that. Here is the news. Tough Mudder has made two major announcements today. One, Tough Mudder will not pay prize money to any races in their competitive series in 2019. This includes TMX, Tougher Mudder, Toughest Mudder, and World's Toughest Mudder. The second announcement, TMX is not currently scheduled for 2019 as there is no TV broadcast partner to pay for it, essentially. That's subject to change if someone else steps in at the last minute, but as it stands right now, there will be no TMX in 2019. On today's episode, we're going to talk with Rea Kolbl. Rea is the two-time back-to-back world champion of World's Toughest Mudder. She won in 2017 and in 2018, and she will not be running in 2019 to defend her title. She explains her thought process when we talk with her in a minute. And then after we talk with Rea, we're going to talk with Heather Bode of the Overcome and Run podcast and Katelyn Ritter of the Obstacle Running Adventures podcast about these changes for 2019 and get their take on it. We have a good old-fashioned panel discussion. So, in a minute, Heather and Katelyn, but right now, it's time to talk with Rea Kolbl. Let's go to the phones. Rea Kolbl, how are you?
I am good. How are you, Will?
I am good. Rea, you are the two-time defending world champion of World's Toughest Mudder, and Tough Mudder just announced today that they are pulling all cash payments for future Tough Mudder races. What do you think about that?
Well, I got that during a workout, and it made me finish the workout really strong. I think, I guess I kind of already processed the whole thing in the last hour, and I guess the good thing for me was that there was so much I wanted to do, and there wasn't enough time. So now that my racing schedule changed quite drastically, I have other races that I wanted to do anyway that didn't fit that now fit. So it was kind of like bittersweet. But I guess I'm not going to be at any of the Tough Mudder races this year now because of that. And it's not that I race for money. I race because I love it and I love the long distance stuff. But the problem with the season is that all of these races are right before other important races. So I was risking being tired at other important races because of those longer Tough Mudder races. The risk is now just not worth it because I do have to still pay bills and other things. I'm pretty sad because I was looking forward to coming back to World's Toughest Mudder for the third time, and I don't think that's going to happen now. But on the bright side, now I can be fresh for the Spartan Ultra. So the year is just going to be different than what I planned the year to be, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be worse.
Last year, you won 3 Toughest Mudders and World's Toughest Mudder. That's a pretty big hit to your yearly paycheck this year.
Yeah, I think it's probably half of my income from racing. But I guess I kind of knew the risks going into this lifestyle. When you're relying on prize money, races can be canceled, people can get injured. So it's kind of the uncertainty that comes with it. But I think if I think about it, I would take that and the unpredictability of this lifestyle, but being able to play outside and, run for a living any day. So we're lucky enough that currently we're only responsible for ourselves. and there's nobody else that depends on that income. And we can still support this lifestyle for now. So it's a bummer, but I think there's worse things that can happen.
So will you be at all of the Spartan US Series races this year?
Yeah, I was already planning on doing that, but then some of them would be a week after a Toughest Mudder. So I was actually worried if I can recover that quickly. So I guess now I know I'll be pretty rested. But I actually just started changing my schedule, and I think I'll actually be able to fit quite a few of Sky races now into my schedule. So I'll still be able to do the long stuff just without the obstacles.
And then you mentioned you're going to do Iceland. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm actually qualifying this year. It's almost the first thing that I'm doing is I'm running an ultra in New Jersey to be qualified for the 24-hour Spartan Ultra. And actually, Ben and I are thinking just staying in Europe for a few months at the end of the year to do the Greece and the OCR WC and then the Spartan Ultra, depending on where that is going to be.
Ray, do you have any sponsors or anything you want to plug?
Yeah, luckily that thing keeps me afloat even if races cancel. So I definitely want to thank Ascent Protein. They're taking real good care of us. And then I have Mud Gear and then Ultimate Direction with their hydration vests, Spring Energy, and I'm testing with Inside Tracker. So they're my sponsor as well. And I think that's it. I hope I'm not forgetting somebody.
Tell me about Inside Tracker. What does Inside Tracker do?
Inside Tracker is blood testing for biomarkers. So I actually started doing that because I felt horrible and I couldn't tell why. And it turns out that my iron levels were really low. So it's just something that I feel like maybe genetically I'm struggling more with, and running a lot doesn't help with it. So they test for that and just a bazillion of other biomarkers so that you can figure out if there's something off before you feel like you want to be a sloth all day, every day.
Ray, how can people follow you on social media?
They can follow me on Instagram at Rea Kolbl, or on Facebook, my name, Rea Kolbl. And then there's also a Pra added to it for my husband. I think those two are probably the best. I try to be pretty responsive on those channels.
So 2019 is going to be a different year for you and for the community. Any last thoughts on the changes?
I'm going to miss everybody from the Tough Mudder community a lot. I feel like that is one thing that I'm most sad about, because you can find other ways to make money and you can find other races to run, but you can't really replace people. And I feel like there are some people I'm not going to see now for a year because of these changes. So I'm hoping that 2020 will be different and I will be able to hang out with all those wonderful people again. But right now, this is what it is, and we'll just have to deal with it and find other things to do.
Rea Kolbl, thanks much.
Thank you, Will.
All right, talking with Heather Bode of Overcome and Run and Katelyn Ritter of Obstacle Running Adventures. Hey, Heather.
Hello.
Hey, Katelyn.
Hello.
So the reason we're talking is Tough Mudder just released some news that for 2019, there will be no prize money for any of their competitive races. That's TMX, Tougher Mudder, Toughest Mudder, and World's Toughest Mudder. They also, in a separate announcement, told the TMX athletes that as of right now, they have no broadcast partner for TMX, and there is no TMX on the schedule for 2019. Let's start with the prize money. Heather, what do you think about that?
So my initial reaction was pretty strong. I was shocked. I initially thought it was a pretty crazy move. I don't get the logic behind it. I've had a little bit of time to process. I'm like, okay, maybe it won't be the worst thing. But right now, it seems like a very odd decision because, as I've described to a lot of people, World's Toughest Mudder, I mean, I know the Tougher series is fairly new, and they still have so much to work on that I understand pulling the prize money from that. Even Toughest, where it's still sort of on the smaller scale, it's a build up to World's Toughest. I kind of understand pulling the prize money away from that as well, but to take it away from World's Toughest Mudder, which is arguably one of the most pinnacle events in the OCR season, it seems like a pretty crazy decision because my first knee-jerk reaction is that all of the serious elite competition that's in the sport of OCR that Tough Mudder attracts will now leave Tough Mudder. So it leaves me a little wary for the future of World's Toughest Mudder.
Rea Kolbl told me because of this change, she will not be able to run any Toughest Mudder, World's Toughest events this year.
Right, exactly. Like, that's my first thought. All these incredible athletes that do love Tough Mudder, but they are at the same time, they are elite athletes, and they're running these races to hit the podium and earn that pay. And they're sacrificing a lot to make these races. And if there's no return for them, then they're going to leave. And so we're going to see athletes like Rea, like Chris Mendoza, like Ryan and Lindsay. They're going to go to other races where all the hard work and what they put their body through is results in some sort of payout, both monetary and just competitive wise.
Katelyn, this past year was your first year at World's Toughest Mudder, kind of being exposed to the atmosphere and the environment. What do you think? How do you think this will affect the race going forward?
I absolutely agree with Heather. I do think that it will drive away some of the more elite athletes because it is their paycheck. You don't go to work for free if you are in any other career field. I do think it's crazy to think big names like Rea and Ryan Atkins may not be at World's Toughest Mudder, and it definitely could level the playing field for like everyday people, which is kind of exciting. Like, I know Will you podiums this year, completely accidental, but like still totally exciting that an everyday person can make top 3 podium. Much of a bummer as it is that they're taking away the prize money and a lot of the big name athletes won't be there. I do think it kind of gives the everyday person like a cool, okay, maybe I have a chance since there is no money involved. But also I feel like it's really hasteful of Tough Mudder to be like, you know what, we're getting rid of all of our prize money, even for events that are not until November. I feel a lot can change in those 11 months. And what your financial situation is now may not be close to what it's going to be like in November.
You know, one of the, I don't know if it's unintended consequences or just one of the results of this is that elite contender doesn't mean nearly as much as it used to the past 2 years when they've had it. If you're not going for the bonus prize money, you're not going for prize money, then really, like, what's the point of killing yourself at a Toughest Mudder? Why not just show up at World's Toughest and win it or compete in it if if there's no prize money at stake?
Yeah, and that's why I think that the people that are going to run the entire elite, like quote unquote elite field for this year's Worlds is going to change. If they take the prize money away, the top athletes of OCR that show up to compete in these races, they're not going to be there this year. So it's going to be an entirely different elite field, which should be interesting. And I like what Katelyn said, because like I said, I had some time to kind of process this news, and I'm like, okay, there could be some, not completely devastating outcomes. And kind of what Katelyn was saying, like, this kind of gives like the more average racer or people who are on that elite level a chance, which could be exciting. But again, we're just going to see this entirely different elite field, which will be interesting. But I don't know. It's just, it's crazy because essentially Tough Mudder is pulling themselves out of the sport of OCR with this kind of move.
That's a good point, Heather. In 2017, Tough Mudder put themselves right up with Spartan Race in the competitive, elite OCR game. They kind of took a step back a little bit last year. But we had high hopes with the 12-hour Toughest Mudders this year, and with kind of this back to basics thing, or back to their roots they've been talking about. Katelyn, do you think this is going back to their roots, or do you think this is a step backwards for them?
So I was reading people's Facebook comments online and their Instagram posts just to see what other people's thoughts were, and a lot of people were like, this is what Tough Mudder was all about. They were all about the untimed events. You can be out here with whoever you want to be and not worry about like coming in last or trying to podium and get prize money. So I almost feel like it is going back to their roots, but definitely unintentional. You don't just like walk away and be like, sorry, no prize money because we're going back to our roots. There's definitely like a deeper reasoning behind what their decision is.
It kind of sounds, and Heather, tell me if you agree or disagree. when they say they're going back to their roots, they said that in their email they sent out to everybody. It seems like when someone gives you some information, there's the reason they give you, and there's usually the real reason, right? And the reason they're giving is we're going back to our roots. But it seems like the real reason is it's strictly dollars and cents.
I was just going to say, if they're going back to their roots, hasn't World's Toughest Mudder always have a payout for their podiums?
That was going to be my point too.
World's Toughest Mudder used to when it first started. The very first year, I'm not sure about, but I know starting at least in the second year, there was a prize for first place. I think it was $10,000 for first place.
Yeah.
Second prize got nothing. But you're right.
Yeah, but
maybe they bring back first place.
That was my first thought, Katelyn, when they're like, oh, we're going back to our roots. I was like, but maybe not the first year, but almost as long as the World's Toughest Mudder has been around, there has been a payout. There has been a prize to achieve. And so you can't really use that argument when, for the majority of World's Toughest Mudder's lifespan, there has been a prize. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
I was just going to say, I can see being like, hey, we're not going to pay out our top 5 anymore. We're just going to do top 3, like making small cuts, but to completely eliminate it is insane.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And so kind of along those same lines, I'll be honest, for the past several years, I thought that the Tough Mudder purse is insanely large. Like for some of their races and their payouts, I'm like, oh my gosh, how do they have this much money to pay out? So yeah, I thought the purse was too large, but there's so much room between a huge payout and no payout at all. Like there's room for compromise, and so I'm confused as to why they didn't find some sort of middle ground, as opposed to just nixing it completely. Like that decision has me sort of lost.
You know what they could do? They could come back in a month from now and say, you know what, we said we were going to cut all the money. We're just going to do first through third, and just for the men and just for the women individual, and it's going to be half of what it was last year. And
I think even that would be better.
Right? But I think after how we're all feeling like right now as we're talking, if they were to say that a month from now, we would all be like, wow, that's great. And it could be maybe like a little, psychological thing where they think to themselves, if we cut it back just right now to first through third, everyone's going to throw a fit. They're going to throw a fit anyway. Let's cut everything, and then we'll bring back a little bit, and they'll be happy to have the little bit back.
That's a good point. Which, I mean, if that is their ultimate strategy, I don't blame them. Soften the blow.
Heather, you mentioned that Katelyn, you mentioned I podiumed at World's Toughest Mudder last year. My team finished in third place. We were a relay team. We stayed together, and we didn't actually beat anybody. We just outlasted a lot of people. Every member of my team would probably tell you, so we got third place in the team, right? The third place in the women was Allison Ty. There is no reason we should be on the same step level as Allison Ty, right? We earned $2,000, $500 a piece. That's great, right? But for us, the biggest prize is to be able to say we finished on the podium for the rest of our lives, right? So that's for us. But not one of us, the four of us, was counting on earning any. We were just happy to finish the course, to finish the 24 hours, right? My point with that whole story was, so next year for World's Toughest Mudder, in the team relay category, they announced this about a month ago, all the relay teams would have to qualify to be contenders at World's Toughest Mudder. Would my team make it? Probably not. Yeah. There would be a lot less relay teams competing for money at World's Toughest Mudder if they had kept the rules that they just had. So they were already planning on cutting back the money. This is a long way to say this. They've been planning on cutting back the money since at least the end of 2018. But this is just kind of a much more dramatic cutback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I was kind of discussing this with some friends, and it's this weird thing where obviously I personally could do with or without prize money. I'm never going to hit a top 3 podium. I'm never going to be earning that prize money, and I'm okay with that. I'm not on the level of these other incredible women. But where my concern lies is how it affects the future of the sport. So I love World's Toughest Mudder, and World's Toughest Mudder has always been billed as a competitive event. I mean, that's what's brought in the CBS coverage. That's what brings in sponsors. it's this top tier OCR pinnacle championship event. And I'm worried that pulling away the competition, like it's still going to be an incredible event for anybody that runs it. I mean, just going through 24 hours of that and pushing yourself and making your own goal, that's incredible. Like I'm so proud of my own world's toughest performance back in 2017, but it was obviously nothing that would get me near a podium. So that in itself is great, but I'm worried that taking away the competitive aspect will negatively affect the event as a whole, and it'll lead to it being a shadow of what it once was.
You know, one of the fun parts of World's Toughest Mudder when you're out there on the course competing is you come into the pit area and you're worried about yourself. You're worried about your nutrition. You're worried about your hydration and your cold.
Yeah.
But then you talk to your pit area or you look at the screen as you're on your way out and you're like, who's in first? Who's in second? How's Atkins doing? How many miles does he have? And this will totally change the dynamic of the competition. Now, there's still someone's still going to be in first, right? Someone's still going to be in second. There's still going to be a race at the top. But it's going to totally change the dynamic of who those athletes are and how much you care to follow them. And do you know their history? Do you know their story? It's going to be just a totally different dynamic at the race.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
are you going to have those finish line moments like with Trevor and Chris this year? Like, you might not get the Ryans or the Chris's because of the payout, but then you might also have somebody come in first by 10 miles. Like, I feel like if you're taking away the money aspect, you're also taking away, like, the excitement of seeing who can, I don't know, I just feel like Chris and Trevor had such a phenomenal finish. Like, would that have happened without the prize money at the end?
Mm-hmm.
You know what, that's a great...
Yeah.
Caitlin, you're totally right.
And someone actually brought up that to me,
Because we would not have had that. Now, neither Chris nor Trevor runs World's Toughest Mudder for the money, right? It's not... But if the money wasn't there, would they both have been there? I don't know. But that's not the reason they go. But if it's not there, are they there? I don't know.
So when I say like these athletes are showing up because there's a payout, it's not just because of the money. Like they have to make choices with because they perform at such a high level. They have to make choices with their energy, with their body, with their training, and they're obviously going to seek the race that gives them the most reward. And because it has the most reward, it doesn't just boil down to money. It's obviously a number of factors, but the prize money is a factor in it. And so, I mean, if those guys or so if Trevor or Chris or Rea don't show up to Worlds, it's not because they're solely seeking money. And I hope Tough Mudder doesn't phrase it that way. Like, it's not because they're seeking money. It's because they're seeking the race that has the most return. So I don't blame the athletes for not showing up if there's no payout. I don't blame them at all.
I have a job. I enjoy my job. But if I wasn't paid to do my job, I would have to go find another job. I would not be able to go to my regular job. And Rea's already told me she can't be at World's Toughest Mudder. It's just she's training for Iceland instead. She's going to save the wear and tear on her body. And I totally get it. Like, I would not like the top, 3 to 5 men and women. We'll probably see 1 or 2 each of those, at World's Toughest this year. So here's maybe a bright side of the story is it'll pull out some other stories. Like Erin Ross last year, she finished second among the women. Maybe she wins World's Toughest Mudder this year. Maybe there's a man who's like Erin Ross, top 5, top 10 level, and Atkins isn't there, and Mendoza's not there, and maybe he rises up and wins it all, and that could be an amazing story, right? So it's not all
definitely
negative. There could be some good things to come out of it, but it's kind of the silver lining. It's maybe there is something good that comes out of it, but overall, it definitely seems like a step back.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying earlier. Like, me being the eternal optimist that I am, like, that's what I'm looking for. I'm like, okay, now that I've had time to process, I'm like, there could be some good things to come out of it. But I'm just, as someone who, I've been watching OCR as a sport and overall as a whole, not just one brand, but all of them, it just makes me nervous for the sport. You know what I mean?
Heather, you're starting to get into ultra running this year. Most of the big ultra running races, the grand prize, if you win the whole thing and have an amazing performance, is a belt buckle.
Yeah.
And not that ultra running is not a sport. Clearly it is. But there's kind of a ceiling on it, right? Like, if you can't make a living doing it, there's a lot more professional marathon runners than there are ultra runners.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this up. Katelyn, what are some of your last thoughts here?
I'm honestly curious of how Tough Mudder is going to officially release this information, because right now it's all just been from athletes like screenshotting the email and posting it on Instagram or Facebook. So I'm kind of curious to see how Tough Mudder is going to damage control this. I think letting it seep out was probably not their best idea, but I am curious to see how they'll handle that. I'm also curious, Will, to see if your predictions are right about, okay, no prize money right now, but in 3 months maybe they'll release a statement. And I'm also curious to see how the big name athletes are going to almost release a statement about this, because they can't just stay silent about their careers. Like, if you're being treated unfairly in your career, you make a stink out of it. Look at all the people who protest and picket, especially I'm a teacher, so I see that all the time. I feel like somebody's going to have to speak up and say something. I'm just curious to see what athletes will come out and either support Tough Mudder and be like, it's never about the money, I'm going to do this anyway. Kind of like what Lindsay Webster did, posting her race schedule, saying hey, I don't have time for Tough Mudder in my race schedule, but I'm hoping this will make it to a few of their events. I'm just curious to see how it all unfolds in the morning when the official news comes out.
Heather, what are your last thoughts on the whole deal?
Yeah, just like Katelyn said, I'm very intrigued to see what the community feedback will be. I'm interested to see what the community feedback, the OCR community feedback will be versus the elite OCR community feedback. I'm wondering if there's going to be any similarities or any major differences. So that's the number one thing. And just in terms of the change itself, as far as taking away prize money, I think it's a wait and see game. I think you can go one of two ways. It can either be disastrous for the brand of Tough Mudder, or it's something where it'll just sort of be something that people forget about over time, and maybe Tough Mudder will go back to having prize payouts. I don't think it's anything that's going to be a major success. I don't see how it could be a overwhelmingly positive thing, but it could be something that's just sort of a neutral moving forward. So like I said, I think it's going to be a wait and see game to see whether or not this is relatively successful or disaster.
Heather, if from Tough Mudder's point of view, what's the best possible outcome right now? Like, if Tough Mudder could wave a magic wand and get the best result out of this decision, what does that look like for them, do you think?
I think the best possible result they could ask for is having a successful standard season with their standard events, having enough money to secure good venues and bring all their new innovative obstacles to each venue. So having enough money for that, and then maintaining the status they have with World's Toughest as far as the number of signups and the success of the event. I definitely don't think this is going to make a Worlds more successful or have more people sign up. But I think the best we could ask for is just to kind of keep it steady moving forward.
Katelyn, Heather just said two things that are real interesting. Katelyn, what do you think about, she just said, hoping they have enough money to do events. How crazy is it that we're having this conversation right now, hoping Tough Mudder has enough money to hold events like that?
That is crazy. I was actually just thinking that, because when you think of the big three, and Mike and I talk about this a lot, we think starring Tough Mudder, and then we argue about what that third one is a lot of times. So the fact that we're even questioning Tough Mudder having the money to continue on, and I see that they already canceled an event for the year. Am I correct?
They've changed a lot of them. They've cut a lot back, so I don't know how you consider canceling it, but there's a lot less events this year than last year, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And that's scary to think about, and how...
I'm saying all this, but I love Tough Mudder.
Absolutely. And I feel like people love Tough Mudder, and they come back year after year because they want the different colored headbands. And I don't think it'll really affect the everyday people. I think they're still going to sign up for Tough Mudder because somebody like me who could care less if I don't even race competitively, so I don't think it'll affect the everyday people. So I think hopefully that means their registrations for the regular day events will stay steady and will hopefully survive another year of Tough Mudder.
Gosh, just listen to the words we're saying. So hoping for Tough Mudder to survive another year. But I don't think you're wrong. Like, here's my problem with the whole thing is I've said this before. I don't think the regular Joes running Tough Mudder business is ever going anywhere, right? I think it's not a fad. People love. I have two dads, parents of kids in my son's class in 5th grade. We're going to run the April Tough Mudder together, the three of us. Like, they've never run one before. They know I'm kind of into it. They don't know the whole deal, but I'm like, yeah, come run with me. That'd be great. But I really feel like Tough Mudder. You know where MMA was like 10 years ago. I feel like Tough Mudder could be like that in 10 years, or obstacle course racing. And I feel like we're limiting ourselves, or Tough Mudder's limiting themselves for what the sport could be. Now, it's always going to be like a real popular kind of niche, hey, let's do this with our buddies on the weekends thing. That will never go anywhere. But I feel like it could be on TV.
And Tough Mudder will always dominate that field.
Right? I think so. I think Tough Mudder is... Yeah. That's another great point, is that they have totally yielded the floor to Spartan as far as competitive racing.
Yes. That's exactly what this feels like.
It's interesting because...
Yeah, I mean, and it's what you were saying, because, like, I think as far as, like, just the average new person signing up to do a fun mud obstacle event, Tough Mudder will always grab that crowd first, because that's what got me to sign up and fall in love with OCR, because it's so fun. It's such a teamwork event. It's so social. Tough Mudder will always do well with that crowd, but they're just completely dropping the OCR world.
We don't know any details as far as financials or anything. Maybe they've done it for 2 years now, and maybe they're like, you know what? We didn't talk about this yet. TMX is gone. Maybe they looked at the numbers for 2 years, and they're like, you know what? Either it's not coming fast enough, or it's not profitable, so forget it.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about TMX? TMX will probably not be held this year unless they find some TV channel to jump in at the last minute.
I'm super bummed. I was surprised. I wasn't a fan of it when they first announced it, but when I actually got to watch it in person, it was really exciting. It was a cool event.
Katelyn, did you ever make it to a TMX?
I did not, no.
What did you think?
I don't have much information.
I feel like just because of the news, this conversation's been not negative, but it's not as, optimistic as we would generally, when we're talking about OCR. I still feel like 2019 is going to be a great year for obstacle course racing. I just feel like on the sports side of it, kind of what we're focusing on in the OCR report, I think the sports side of it's going to be, 90% Spartan race now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's for sure. If nothing else, this is going to be a very, very interesting year and different year of OCR overall.
I agree. I also wonder what Bode Senna's take on all of this is. Like, I just wish I could be inside his mind and see what his thoughts are.
Oh, Joe DeSena right now? Joe DeSena he's drinking a tall glass of cold water to celebrate.
Oh, Lordy.
Yeah, he's doing some celebratory burpees on Tough Mudder's competitive grave.
Yes.
Katelyn, tell me about your podcast and how can people find new episodes?
Oh, perfect. The podcast is Obstacle Running Adventures. It's myself and Michael Stefano as co-hosts. We are on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is where you'll get the fastest response from us, and it's Obstacle Running Adventures.
Heather, how can people find your podcast?
You can find me anywhere you listen to podcasts, Overcome and Run, on Facebook, Overcome and Run, and Instagram at Overcome and Run.
Both of your podcasts are part of the OCR Report network of podcasts. Very excited about that.
Absolutely, and on the OCR Report.
Yes.
Heather Bode, Katelyn Ritter, thanks much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Special thanks to Rea Kolbl, Heather Bode, and Katelyn Ritter for appearing in this episode. Well done, ladies. Come back anytime. What do you think? No prize money for Tough Mudder. Good, bad, or does it even matter? Let me know what you think in a review on Apple Podcasts. Open the Purple Podcast app on your iPhone, search for the OCR report, click our logo, and then scroll down to click Write a Review. I would appreciate it, and I want to hear from you. Leave us a review. We'll talk with you soon. Go spend time with someone you love.